У нас будет прямая трансляция в YouTube. У нас сегодня очень уникальный спикер Арноном Гешури. Это человек, который присоединился, наверное, к как минимум двум компаниям, которые стали иконами. Он пришел сначала в Google, где он был сеньорным директором по рекрутингу HR, где он построил структуру, нанимал людей и занимался построением культуры. И потом он пришел в стартап, который стал Tesla, и также проработал там 7 лет как VP of Human Resources, и сейчас он присоединился к компании, которая называется Livongo. Это компания, которая недавно совершила merger с компанией Teladoc, и они являются сейчас лидерами по телемедицине. Я хотела сказать, что сегодня будет весь ток на английском языке. В конце у нас будут вопросы, Q&A. Если нужна помощь по формированию вопросов, я могу переводить, но ток будет проводиться на английском языке. Thank you everyone for joining. I just had a little Russian introduction, just explaining about the talk, and that we're going to have questions at the end, Q&A session. And today we have, I'm personally very excited, a very unique speaker, Arnonom Gешури. It's the person who joined, I think he has a really unique skill of picking the right companies to join. He started with Google as a senior director for recruiting and HR, spent there 5 years helping to build and to grow the teams. And then he joined, I would say, startup, which turned out to be Tesla. And he was there for, I think, more than 7 years as a VP of Human Resources, leading the teams, helping to build cultures, hiring lots of people, helping to scale. And right now, Arnon is working for a very exciting company, which used to be Livongo, and now they merged with a Teladoc. It's 2 big companies that I would say are leaders in telemedicine right now and developing in this space more and more. So very exciting to have you today, Arnon. Please do introduce yourself, and we're very happy to hear you talk today.
Thank you very much. And I'm so happy to be here with everyone today. Again, my name is Arnonom Gешури. I seem to love to go to startups and help each organization grow. I spent, as Valerie mentioned, I spent time at Tesla when it was, got there when it was about 400 people, and we grew it to nearly 40,000 individuals. I was there at early days at Google, also building the company. And, you know, for each of these organizations, I learned, you know, some tips and some ways of building culture that I thought I could share today, and provide outline of kind of hints and information that I found that might be beneficial for all of you. So I will focus my talk today on two companies. One is Google and the other is Tesla. And I'll talk about the cultural framework that was created at the very beginning that helped the companies grow tremendously over time. So let me go ahead and begin. And there's 3 areas that I'll cover. And they are, I'll look at the communication patterns in each company, how the culture was formed, and also how they hired and recruited. And each of those provide a lot of insight. So let me start with Google. So Google, I picked the top 8 helpful tips to share today. The first one is that, and these are the foundation for which a culture was developed. The first one was over-communicate. There was an idea that if you've communicated enough, you did not communicate enough. So there's an open dialogue, and they expected all managers and leaders to constantly communicate through email, through talks, through any way that you can share information. It wanted to become a regular part of the culture. Every Friday, without fail, the founders would come on stage, broadcast globally, a Friday afternoon talk, and employees could ask anything they wanted to, anything. It could be any question about the business, about the future of the company. And they knew that on every Friday, employees had access to the founders. So as the company grew, they never stopped doing that and made sure to have clear communication back and forth where people felt connected. The second element is leaders crush bureaucracy, which means that a manager's role is to clear the way for their employees, get the employees full access to make sure they do their best job. So leaders are responsible for taking away processes, if things that don't make sense, and clear the way for each employee to do their best. The third is empower the smallest of teams. There was a philosophy that the best work, the best creativity was done when the team was small, only 12 people. It was kind of this rule of 12. Like, don't make the teams too big, but give a team of 12 a hard problem and let them figure it out. Throughout the history of Google, as the company got bigger, we would do an analysis of the organization, and we found teams that were too big, and they lost their connectiveness. So we had an exercise where we condensed or squished teams down to a smaller amount of people so they could focus on tough problems and working closely with their colleagues. Number 4, it's crowd people together. They thought the best ideas came from bumping into each other around the snack, the lunchroom, the water cooler, just in the hallway, that you could share ideas back and forth. So even if there was new real estate or a new room opened up, a new building, they wouldn't allow people to move in. They squished people in the same older building so that they stayed closely together and they bump into each other sharing ideas. So crowd people together. Number 5 is reduce distraction and cater to needs. It's kind of similar to this crush bureaucracy, but they said, okay, what do people think about that makes them distracted from their work? Doing the laundry, right? Getting a snack, being hungry, walking, visiting the doctor. So they thought if we created an environment that allowed all of those distractions to be easily accessible, it allowed people to do their best work and not have to worry about all this other stuff. So reduce distractions and cater to needs. The 6th is hire by committee. Hire by committee. So, and we'll talk more about this later, but I want to give a little bit of overview that there was a committee structure during the hiring process, which means that, I'll use engineering as an example. For engineers, managers did not hire engineers to report to them. What a role of the committee was is that you looked for people that were great for the company, not great for your team. So they had a committee looking at profiles. The committee looked at interview feedback. And if it seemed like this person was a good culture fit, was smart enough, was the right person, then they would recommend to the next committee for that person to be hired. And there was multiple committees to review. And then when an engineer was hired, it wasn't hired for a team. It was put into a bidding system where engineering managers could look at all the different engineers that were coming in, and they could put a bid on which engineer they wanted for their team.
You create a tender system. Who will snap the best person?
Exactly. Exactly. You're swiping. So that's exactly right. And they created a system where you knew that the committee would make good decisions on behalf of the company. So you're not going to go wrong, and you just pick a person that you thought would be great, but they're already hired for the company. So it was a great hire by committee. Number 7 was do not hire specialists. Do not hire specialists. They felt that hiring people that had a diverse background, were more generalists, that they have lots of different experiences, they could approach a problem in a very creative way. So they felt specialists were too narrow in their thinking, and Google promoted, let's find people who have different experiences, came from different backgrounds, throw them on a problem and let them solve it. So is do not hire specialists. And the last one, number 8, is where there is harmony, there is no innovation. Where there is harmony, there is no innovation. The core thing when you hire somebody at the company is you want to hire somebody who can debate you. somebody who can challenge the status quo, challenge the ideas. You want people to challenge you. So that when a problem came up, they weren't just say yes and yes and yes, they would actually come out with different ideas. So they thought meetings were a great place for debate and for tension, because the best ideas come out of that tension for the company. So those are the top 8 for Google. Let's do a comparison to Tesla. So at Tesla,
Arnon, sorry, can I ask a quick question here? Just to kind of a little bit summarize on that. They're actually great points. I myself work with Google, so I can see a lot of them like getting to real life and making the culture so unique in the company. I have a question, but maybe you can decide if you want to answer it now or maybe talk about this later. You talked about, I think, number 4, crowd people together, right? And Google, as you said, famous about campuses bumping into each other, like starting conversations, projects. How is it evolving with remote work? Because people have been working for a year and a half remotely, and lots of companies are actually staying in this mode or allowing their employees to choose it, to stay in remote work. Would you like to talk about this? I'm just personally curious how it will change for Google in particular.
Yeah, so I can look at what I've read and what I know, and I have folks that are still there, and I know that they've been promoting people to come back, because I think fundamentally part of the culture is crowding people together in the same space, and it's hard for them to give up that piece of the culture, because right, it's hard for them to give up, and I saw in the paper, like I'm reacting to the same thing, or saw in the online. I don't know who reads papers anymore, but online, and it said that they were asking people to come back. People basically revolted.
Some engineers were saying, "I'm not going back from Hawaii."
I'd rather quit than go back, and so they had to modify it. So I think a lot of companies are experiencing exactly the same dilemma, exactly the same challenge, and there are a lot of people who've found their cadence, found their rhythm working from home. So we're going into a whole new area where we're going to have to create this drive-by, this bumping into each other remotely. And I don't think anyone has it solved just yet, but I think people are going to try to simulate. And that's what I've done, is I've tried to have just open dialogue where I've had people on, very similar to what we're doing today. We reserve this hour just to brainstorm and to bounce ideas off each other, and it's probably the best that we can do as of now.
To make it as you said, like kitchen experience or corridor experience, where we just talk about just random things.
And with no set
so
agenda.
You feel like it's going to evolve, so the culture is changing, right? Because some companies will try to find either balanced approach, like half, or allowing people to have more flexibility.
Yeah,
very interesting to see how it will evolve.
How this is going to evolve. I totally agree. Yeah.
See, can I also translate? There's a quick question. I will just want to close it here. One person asked about the translation of number 6. So number 6 was hired by committee. I will just translate and explain it a little bit.
Please.
Пункт 6, значит, нанимать на работу при помощи комитета. То есть это не один человек, который принимает решение, что человек попадет в компанию. Это группа людей. Они обычно решают, что человек просто попадает в Google. И когда он попадает в Google, тогда создается система как бы тендера или bidding, да? То есть человек в Google, его наняли, и потом команды, скажем так, ставят свои ставки, кто хочет к себе его забрать. То есть таким образом комитет выбирает не, скажем так, самого хорошего специалиста на проект, а просто человека, который you look for a person who's great for a company. Человека, который будет хорош для компании, неважно, в какую часть он попадает. Я надеюсь, что я ответила на ваш вопрос. Спасибо. Thank you, Arnon.
Great, thank
you.
I
wanted to apologize. I said your surname Gherushe and it's Geshuri. I felt like, sorry, it's just like I kind of forgot it the wrong way. Apologies for that.
No, perfect.
Go on.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so now let's compare what I just mentioned about Google, and let's compare it to Tesla as another example. So I'm going to do my top 8 for Tesla, my top 8. So the first one, and again, the categories are communication, culture, and hiring, and I group them together. The first one is unfiltered communications. The culture is built around that you go to who has the answer. You don't go through the hierarchy. So instead of, let's say if I don't ask my VP to ask their senior VP to then to ask another VP and come all the way down, that a VP can go and ask an analyst on a different team, or or if I give a question, you're open to communicate to the CEO himself. So the promotion it's about speed, it's about efficiency, it's about sometimes when you ask somebody to ask somebody else, things get lost. So unfiltered communications is you go directly to the person who has the answer, regardless of level, regardless of hierarchy, regardless of org structure, so that you get the answer immediately so you can move on. Because speed to market and building a strong team that has the answers is key to moving quickly.
And is this still the case with Tesla growing so big?
It's still the case. Multiple times, even when we were at 40,000 people, the CEO would email at least twice a year and say, if anybody has any ideas about improving anything in the company, I want you to send it to me directly. Just send it me.
Here's my email. Yeah, here's my phone.
Send me a note. And then the CEO would say, this looks great, and forward it to the VP or the director or whoever, or the analyst who's responsible for it, says, please fix this. This is a great idea. And if we don't have an answer, let me know, to the employee who generated the idea, and I'll make sure this gets done. And it was a great way to connect every single person to the top person in the company. It was a great way to have free flow of ideas, and everyone felt they had a voice, and everyone did have a voice. It was an amazing connection point for the company.
People actually asking, would it create some sort of a chaos when people can reach out to anyone and it's like there's no structure, and some people might get more questions because they're like in a bottleneck or something like that? Or it wasn't the case?
It wasn't the case. People were thoughtful about their questions, and no one took advantage of it. I mean, the idea was that sometimes people are afraid to reach out to very senior people. We want to break through that. We want people to feel comfortable going to anybody, because everyone's equal when they come into the company. Everyone's equal.
You try to, I'm not saying break hierarchy, but make it at least transparent. So people will feel that they can, if they want to, they can go to a person, solve a problem, propose a solution, and they will be heard.
And it was never abused. It was never abused. And, and we got great ideas from it, because people would say, hey, I think I have found a way to be more efficient in whatever, and we ran with it. So it was a great way to feel, to have open communication across the company.
I think it's extremely important, especially if you have a production line, because people who are sitting in the office and the headquarters might not be connected to the simple, like physical production line, right? If something is happening on the factory or like batteries, and then you can give a feedback from frontline that this is something we can improve that will eventually go to the offices and make like revenue or product better.
That's exactly very insightful. A lot of the suggestions came from the line, from the production line, and we said, you know what? I bet if we did this and this, it would make more efficient process, and we took all those suggestions and we ran with it. So yes, it was because they know exactly what's happening on the floor.
Exactly. They're there. They're in the front line.
They're experiencing it every day, and they said, you know what? I think I have a better way of doing this, and it created ongoing innovation. It created, like, everyone was able to innovate. Everyone was able to be creative, and it encouraged people to do that. That was the magic of it.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And was it in the company when you joined it? You said it was like 400 people. Was it already there from the beginning, or this is something which has evolved?
It was already there. It was a fundamental belief of the company right at the very beginning, and it was part of the growth of the company. It never diluted. It never changed. It was always, please, if you see something that needs to be fixed, raise your hand immediately and fix it.
This is the core culture of Tesla. Yes. That's amazing. Thank you.
Sure, that's great. Okay, the next one is no physical barriers. No physical barriers. And what I mean is that we had a no office environment. Everyone was on the same floor. Everyone had desks facing each other in a gigantic pool. Think of this long, huge corridor of 1,000 people, and you could just see across the sea of desks. And we, what was interesting was when I toured the factory prior to Tesla taking on the factory, we had one in California. That was the first one. I walked around the factory, I got the key, and we were going to go in and renovate and rebuild. And I got the key to the factory, and I walked around, and I saw this I walked through this hallway, and I saw this huge cafeteria with long picnic tables, and could hold 2,000 people. This huge, huge cafeteria. And then I saw this really beautiful door. And I said, "What's this door?" And the key, I opened it up, and it was a beautiful lunchroom. This like tablecloths and tables and gold. And I go, "What is this place?" And they said, "This is where the executives ate their lunch."
Oh, wow.
And I think, oh, terrible. This is awful. Like, no wonder they have, like, how can you do this? How can executives have their lunch in this room? And so it was a symbol of what it was in the past. This is not who we are as a company. So immediately when I saw that, we tore it apart and we created locker rooms for everybody to use. So it became a big locker room, and everyone ate in the same place. And what was interesting, when I recruited for senior execs at the company, I would take, this is a little secret for everyone here in the audience, I would take them into the cafeteria I would schedule the interview during lunchtime. So we had 2,000 production workers, in this big, vast room, happy, noisy, everyone's talking, it's great. And I would have the executives sit with me next to myself at one of the tables in the production. And I would purposely get up and say, "I will get us some water or some drinks, and I'll be back in a couple minutes." And I go walk back and I watch what they would do. And if I saw they picked up their phone and started looking around and just kind of hiding and doing this, I said, wrong. But if I saw that they put their phone down and they met the person next to them, they said hello to other production,
engaging. Mm-hmm.
They engaged, I go, perfect. Because I didn't want an exec that was hierarchical. I wanted them to feel.
Who couldn't probably feel even comfortable in a setup like this. That's amazing. I really like this, like real life test.
Real life test. And they didn't know. And sometimes they even complained to me. Some of the ones who said like, "Hey, how come I didn't get a special room?"
Oh, wow.
I said, well,
that's exactly. If you're not looking for, you try to. This is a perfect test to eliminate cultural misfits.
Yeah, and I eliminated like 80% of the candidates, which was fine.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But
you want just the best 20%, right? 80-20. You want this 20 ones that are going to be a fit for you.
That that knows how to connect. So anyway, no physical barriers. Mm-hmm. Everyone's out in the open. We didn't like hierarchy, so we thought offices represented hierarchy, and we wanted everyone to be on equal on the same playing field. Super, super important. The next one is number 3, is have a healthy skepticism of best practices, meaning always question the best practice. Because prior, like car companies would say, "Oh, it takes 7 years to take a design and bring it to market." And then we said, well, who says it takes 7 years to do that? Why can't it take a year? Why can't it take 2 years? I mean, why does it have to take 7 years? Because people were stuck in a certain way of developing a vehicle, and we questioned every single part of that process and basically blew it up and consolidated the process down by months versus years. Just because we questioned the status quo, we didn't take it as gospel. We didn't take it as the truth. So everybody had to have that healthy skepticism to always question best practices. And what was important is as you scale, practices that you just created might not work anymore. So you're going to have to blow up that practice to scale the company and try something different. So you always have to recreate and rethink and do things more efficient and do things better. So always question best practices, always question the status quo. Number 4, share the bad news. Share the bad news. So when you go into meetings.
Really like that one.
Yeah, it was the best. It was the best, Valerie, because when you go into meetings, exactly. You're not going to spend 15 minutes of all the good stuff that's happening, because basically we're all saying that's a waste of 15 minutes. You have all this around the room. We're here to solve problems. We're not here just to pat you on the back. So and also they thought if you didn't share bad news, then you're hiding something, like something's going wrong.
There's always something wrong.
Yeah, always something wrong. So just come out and say it, like at the beginning, saying, look, we all have limited time We all are busy. So I'm just going to come out and tell you the top 3 problems that I have, and I need everyone's help around this table to fix it. So immediately you share the bad news up front.
And you start focusing on what is important, what needs to be solved. I really like it. Like there's so many meetings when you just go and it's like highlights, like important things, priorities, and bad news will slowly come up, but like it's in the middle or at the end. And if you just start with them, like it will be so much more productive, because this is the area where you have to focus. And I think it's very important, like talking about transparency, no barriers. Once you have this culture, only in the culture of where you feel safe to speak up, right, and to be heard, then you can openly start the conversation with, here's the problem, we need to solve it.
Exactly. And then it also made it okay to say, look, I have problems in my area.
Yes. I need, like, you're not afraid of like showing there's a problem, acknowledging it, asking for help.
Exactly. That's right. And it changed the whole culture. I mean, this creates a culture of sharing and of problem solving. So yes.
It sounds so simple, but so many companies are still like far away from those, like even simple 4 points.
And then so what happens is that problems that could have been an ice cube that you could have fixed become an iceberg and smash the media.
Yeah. And they will come up eventually. Yes.
It'll always come out. So you might as well just be open about it. All right. So number 5, do not be ordinary. Do not be ordinary. So I love this one. I'll give you a great example. So when we were creating the sales organization, the philosophy of sales, there is, especially in the United States, I don't know how this translates, but in the United States, there is a concept of a used car salesman. That's kind of a car salesman that's slimy, that you can't trust, that creates a deal, you take the car away, and it's a disaster, right? So we wanted to be the exact opposite of that. And we want to have an experience. So we walked into one of the stores, one of the retail stores, it was an experience in sustainable energy. It was an experience that you learned something. You don't have to buy anything. You don't have to buy a car. You don't have to buy a solar panel. You just have to learn and be more educated about the world around us. And if you walked away more knowledgeable, we felt like it was a win. And what was really funny about this, there was a research firm that went to all of the car companies in the US and tested their ability to close a deal, to make a sale. And we were dead last on that marketing survey, and dead last. And we were cheering. We were saying, this is awesome, because we don't want to be top, because that means they're using their old criteria to measure, and we were to create a whole new way of selling a vehicle, because we knew that when people learned, they're going to come back and they're going to purchase eventually, and they're going to tell their friends and others of things they've learned, and it became viral. So it was such a beautiful way to educate the population and led to sales. So it's just a different approach, and we're glad.
You create your own community. I mean, because sustainable energy, it's new, right? So as you said, you educate. I mean, it's a great PR as well. And also the message, how you approach it, you not just trying to sell, you're trying to explain why is a better way of doing it, right? And then once you have a community, as you say, people share it, then sales will just follow.
Exactly. Yeah. And it happened. I mean, it was approved.
Exactly. It worked.
Yeah. Okay. Number 6, interview everyone yourself. Interview everyone yourself. So sometimes companies don't follow this rule, but I think it's a great one. And this is very similar to Google as well. But that means every person that's on your team, you should interview and make sure they're excellent. Make sure they fit the culture. Don't just rely on people who are on your team to interview. There's an expectation that as a leader, as a founder, as an entrepreneur, that you will interview every single person that comes into for a role. The CEO at Tesla did that. I mean, he would have 30 or 40 interviews a week. He said the most important thing for me to do is find the next generation of talent for the company. Like, find talent that can build this organization. So he was in every interview. It could have been 10 minutes, it could be an hour, but he interviewed every single top candidate to make sure that it was right for the company and they had the elements that he was looking for. And what it did, and this is really important, it calibrated the other leaders of what good looked like, of what great looked like. So when we saw certain candidates that got a yes, that said, yeah, this is a perfect person for us, we were able to see examples of how these people got hired and how they were. And then we were able to replicate that to the next set of candidates. So we learned what was right for the company through our leader, through our CEO, and we all got calibrated. So it was very, very key. And as you're building your organizations, you know, you're by selecting the people, you're teaching your employees around you of what you're looking for and what's important in people, and it helps to calibrate the perfect person for the company.
And when you said that you were sharing experiences, how the person was hired, was it because there was also a committee, or you were recording recruiting process and sharing the pipelines or the processes?
Yeah, for me, is we got a sense for kind of the right background. So there was basically only 2 questions in the interview. And I'll give you the secret, only 2 questions. And we would tell the candidates—
People, important information, 2 secret questions to be hired at Tesla.
These are secret questions. So there's only 2 questions that were asked. The first one was, you know, tell me about your background and how and when you change roles. Like, take me through, not quite take me through your resume, but we want to find out if there was intentionality, if there was purpose to the moves that you made in your career.
Like your journey or your logic through your—
the logic behind the journey.
Exactly.
You want to kind of see if it made sense, or did you just fall into something and didn't really have a plan, right? So that was one. The second one, the key ask was, what makes you exceptional? What is your exceptional ability? And the core of this is, when you see something that is, and we looked at this for every single person, when you see something that is really difficult, really challenging, that many people would run away from, are you the person that, because you have certain skills and certain capabilities and certain knowledge, you're the one person that was able to solve that problem and that you didn't run away from it? Now, this could be professionally or it could be personally. So it could be professionally where, let's say, if for a finance person, they're able to figure out a better process to do a quarterly close from 40 days to 20 days, and they are the one who figured it out and no one else did. It could be personal, like actually really, like, do you have this secret power? Like, we had one candidate who was in basically a war-torn area, and they were able to carry their family over to safety one by one, again and again. And they sacrificed themselves, you know, in their own, they knew that it was only them that could do it. So it's almost, so the concept was, if you could fill the company up with people who were passionate, who could solve problems, who could see the most crazy situation and overcome it, if you fill the company up with people like that, then you would have an amazing organization, because everyone has the power to win, and everyone knows how to win in the worst of circumstances. So that was kind of the concept when we interviewed every single person. So then, to your question, Valerie, if they couldn't answer those questions, if they couldn't come up with even one example, and we would tell them, like, beforehand, like, come up with 2 examples of this.
Yeah, just as simple as that.
Simple. If you can't do that, then you're not right for us. And we're able to calibrate the right stories to those kind of concepts.
And were those 2 questions asked for managers and engineers, or like very different backgrounds? This is like
every person from production to admin all the way to VP. And the stories are different, but the will to win and the ability to problem solve should be consistent among everybody. So we knew those questions transcend every role.
I think this is so powerful, especially with the second part, when you said you find someone who can solve or like keep up with like a really tough situation, or like finding people with this mindset. It's a company of winners. It's a company of people who will never give up and just keep propelling further.
So every single person had to answer those questions in the company. Every single person.
I love that. It's really simple and to the point.
Yeah. So number 7. It's very similar. I kind of went over again. Ask candidates about a problem they solved. So I just mentioned that kind of concept. Like, and here's the other element to this that I think is really important. That sometimes people, and maybe people have seen this, or maybe you've all seen this in interviews. People sometimes were around the solution, but didn't help in the solution. So they can start describing it. Oh yeah, we put together this piece and we created this new, this new gadget. And then you ask a couple questions. Well, how did you come up with those two pieces? And then the person is not able to answer. So when you ask about a problem they solved, you keep on digging and digging and digging until you scratch and they have to be able to answer down to the
very details, so you get to the point. Yeah, where they've been involved.
No, they were actually there, and they were actually helped to solve the problem, and not just witnessed it, but they were part of the solution. So you have to take those people out who said they were
observers.
Part of observers, yeah, exactly. Take out the observers. And the last one is, do not settle for anything less than the best candidate. For anything less than the best candidate. Here's a great example for you. So at SpaceX, which is another company, they were looking for a soft yogurt server, soft ice cream server, right?
Like Froyo, something.
Yeah, Froyo, like Froyo.
Yeah,
exactly.
I love those. Yeah.
You just like pull the lever and we said, oh, we'll just hire somebody to do that. No, you need to hire the best frozen yogurt person in California.
That's an ambitious goal. It's important. Ice cream, it's important. It is.
Yeah, no, you can't mess that up. So we looked for candidates that were employee of the month at different ice cream places throughout the area.
I love that.
and we found the person that was like employee of the month multiple times during the year. They were the best employee.
Most passionate ice cream deliverer.
To create the perfect shape. And that's the person we hired, and they became amazing. So that means don't settle for just someone who can do the job. Settle for, find somebody who can create the job, right? Create it. So it didn't matter what.
I have a question right here. I mean, this is an amazing approach. And I think if you can do this, if you get the best people, like the best ice cream maker, you will have the best results, right? But the question I have, if the company is just starting, right? And I think we have lots of founders here, right? So how do you track the best ones in the beginning? Because once the company is popular as Tesla now, right? And you have Elon Musk, whenever he puts his name, people want to join just because they know the leadership, right? But how do you attract best people in the beginning?
Well, when I first started the company, no one heard of the company before. So 9 out of 10 candidates that we called hung up on us because they said, we don't know who you are. Like, what is this? And so, in the early days, you have to tell the story. You have to know your mission, know like what your company is all about, and you find those passionate people. And so it might be out of 10 people, you're going to find one person. So it's going to be a little bit harder at the beginning, but you find those people that can help amplify your story, that really understand it and are passionate about it. So that's what we looked for. We looked for super smart people who could solve problems, who had that ability to win, and also believed that this company would be great. And at the beginning, you need that passion. So don't settle for competencies or settle for skills.
Those are the founders, like those are the founding teams, right? The first, 100 to 50 people, yeah.
And we had to find the next 100 people. And then once those 100 people started, then they helped recruit the next 1,000 people. So you start right. You have to do it right the first time, because those people are going to interview the next generation.
Exactly. They're going to build up more and more.
Yeah. And it's hard at the beginning, but it's very doable.
Yeah. As you said, inspiring and storytelling. People actually ask a question. I think it's quite relevant. People say quite often they will take interns, like students or talented people. So they're young and they take them, they grow them, and use them in the company later. So it's like growing next generation. How often is this approach used in your experience as well? Like growing your own talents, I would say, within the company.
Yeah, it's a great question. Every company I've been in, we've had robust we've had big student internship programs. Even at a company of 400 people at the beginning, we had 30 interns, I think, in the first summer that we had a program. So it was quite a lot of people. I am a firm believer in finding amazing talent from universities and bringing them in and helping them build the company. I mean, it's really important. And every company I've been at we've developed that program. And I made sure it was a highlight of the recruiting function. So yes, please do that and find those great people that are going to be a long-term heroes in the company.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Arnon.
Okay.
Number 9.
Yeah, that was 8. That was 8. So just the top 8. And
top 8, perfect.
Top 8. All right. So I have one more, then I'll open it for questions. And I have some questions that were sent in prior. I just wanted to kind of maybe talk about just quickly common insights across the companies that I thought could wrap it all together, like package it in a nice way.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one is, in all the companies I've been in, the success is due to communication is open and fluid. Communication is open and fluid. So we talked about unfiltered communication or over communicate, but it was, we made sure that communication just allowed organically to happen and people could share ideas. The second one is debate and opposing opinions or different opinions are celebrated and they help with innovation. So debate helps innovation because it causes tension to come up with the right answer. And I found in all the companies I've been in, that's a common principle, a common anchor. The third one is listen to your smart people. You hire smart people, listen to them, right? Everybody wants to have a voice. It's important to give them an opportunity to contribute. So you hire smart, you listen to the smart people. The fourth one is hire and encourage passionate people to come up with new ideas. You kind of heard that along the way. These passionate people, let them be creative. Let them see things that you don't see. Let them see the patterns that come out because they're just, again, we're not hiring specialists, we're hiring people who just have all these great experiences and they can then see things that we don't see and allow them to make great ideas. And the last one, and this is actually something that Google was really big on. And the last one is great people attract more great people. And so we hear that a lot, right? But there was a purpose to this. So at Google, what they did was, and again, this could translate into different ways, but they would hire people who were well known for certain things for the sheer fact that they would attract more people. For example, they would hire a person that was a founder of C++, or something, or they would hire
the legends.
They would hire some legends, right? And the legends drew people in, like all these. Now, Google was an example on its own, but the concept is right, where great people know other great people, and great people have a following. So sometimes you hire a person because you know others will follow, and you'll get more people, and it's an actual recruiting strategy that you might want to consider.
Mm-hmm. May I ask a question about your current company? Would you be able to share a little bit more about Livongo Teladoc, or this is something it's still kind of in the process or in the building?
No, I'm happy to.
I would love to hear, but I'm personally interested and curious. Yeah,
sure. So I'll give you.
And because they're very different, like you have, software, right? Then there's like mobility, like vehicles, and then now it's a healthcare.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'll give you 5 quick elements.
Mm-hmm. And maybe like, so if you see similar patterns or like how they're different, if you see something like maybe significantly radical different for that company.
Yeah. So one is one is that for the company, everybody in the company should use their own products, like use their own family of products. So what I found is that because it's a virtual company and it has these products that are out there, these virtual products plus physical products that help with diabetes and weight management, that we want everyone in the company to be close to the members that the company serves. So, so everyone needs to be versed and connected to the company's products. So everyone needs to use it. And this goes to like stay close to the member, where we train every single person in the company, no matter if you're an engineer, if you're human resources person, if you're an admin, you get trained in reaching out to customers, to members, to have conversations of how things are going and how the products are being used. And you're given 5 names per month to be able to go and reach out. And why? Because it reminds people why you're passionate about being at the company, and that you connect more with what the company's purpose is.
Exactly, connect to people you care. You care actually about their outcomes, or.
That's
and
right.
when you say using your own product, does it mean like you have to try, like to test the products? You can't test the diabetes product, or.
I have all the products. So I prick my finger. I try.
Oh wow! So you literally use them. Wow, that's amazing.
Use it because you want to almost live the experience of the users, right? There was I was told, and as you use, when you prick your finger a lot of times, it gets calloused, because and it's harder and harder and harder to prick it to get.
Did you get to that point?
And so I said, I wonder if that's the case. And I used it until it got calloused, and I had to constantly increase the length of the
needle.
But this is the experience that the member has, and I wanted to experience it. So I knew what was happening. I could walk their shoes, and I could be a better person.
This is so powerful. This is so powerful. Like, especially with healthcare, you need to have this, just kind of the ability to connect and to feel them. Like simple example, as what you just said, very powerful.
Agreed. I'll do one more, and then maybe open it up for questions or.
Sure.
And I also felt that, with this type of company, what I learned and I kind of brought with me is building stronger connections with the leaders, So, how we had this unfiltered communication at Tesla where people could email, or at Google, you had an opportunity every Friday to have this Friday's afternoon session with the founders. You can ask any questions you wanted to. So I kind of created that environment, or we brought that over to Teladoc Health, where we are having these really great sessions that a leader talks about their business to the company, and you ask any questions you want. So it's almost like sometimes people forget, like you work in finance and maybe you just focus on your area and you forget about other areas and you go home. But we don't want that to happen. We want people to understand how things interconnect and also have a personal connection with the leaders out there. So we created programs where we have these tech talks similar to this that we're doing today. And a leader talks about their organization very openly, and allows anybody in the company to ask questions, to debate, to create ideas, to have you thought of this?
Trying to break the silos, right? And educating about what exactly you're doing and trying to link it somehow.
Exactly. And it's created all these connections, and it's been really amazing. It was so simple. It doesn't cost anything, right? These are simple tricks to kind of build a culture of openness and communication flow and feeling connected to the leadership and connected to each other. And it's really critical as you're building your company.
And from your experience, you believe that no matter how big the company is, you can still maintain this culture of openness, connectiveness, and being able to reach out to anyone. So you believe that's the case? Yeah, because lots of companies, once they're scaling, I think it's inevitable to become more hierarchical, right? Like more siloed, just because it's so big, even like Alphabet, right? I'm not sure if Calico is talking to, I don't know, YouTube teams. It's just getting harder.
So you have to resist, and you have to have to do intentional programs that connect people, that you just have to make sure it's part of the culture and you never let it go. Because what I find is, and I've done work with other companies, is that people begin to feel disconnected as it gets bigger. And why do they feel disconnected? Because they don't talk to very many people anymore. They don't feel that their voice has any weight. They don't feel they have a voice in the company. All these things occur, and then companies lose their early stage people. They just leave because they feel disconnected. So I say, why does that have to happen? Like, we can create environments where people feel connected, where people open communication, where you create forums for that. So no matter how big you get, you can create YouTube channels for people to post videos. You can do internal chats on Slack or Teams, or you can create these environments, these organizational channels that allow people to stay connected. It's super important, and never let that go.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I think it's not always easy, but as you said, it's important to remind yourself how did everything started, right? And kind of keep developing the same philosophy with
Yes.
scale.
Agreed.
Let me see if we have questions.
Yeah. Any live questions? I have questions that were submitted, but I'm happy to do live questions first.
I think I was translating pretty much all of them. I think there's just a few which came from live. It says, what is a scenario for people? Like, what is the scenario of development for people who's not working really productively? They're not really, maybe they were joining as a great employee, they had passion and everything, and then there's no results, or they burned out or something. How is it, are they just being fired, or like, how does it process, I would say?
Yeah. So the problem with having folks that aren't productive is that other people see it.
Mm-hmm.
Not only does that person not produce, but other people, employees who are productive, see a person who's not.
It's affecting them as well.
Yeah, it's affecting them, saying, well, why am I working so hard if that person is able to take it easy? So it has more of an impact on the group than you could possibly imagine, because people notice. So you do have to, sometimes I have a fork in the road conversation with people. So basically I say, look, if you want to bet on yourself, let's focus on this and get better. But if you don't, if this is not the right place for you anymore, I'm going to invite you to be successful somewhere else in a different company. And it's okay. Like, it's okay. And so my recommendation is, as quickly as local employment laws allow, that you probably need to phase people out.
I will totally agree with you. Sometimes toxic people is a special case, but sometimes removing one person from the team, it will just change everything. And you need to let people go if you feel that this is totally not the right match. Thank you. I have a few more questions from YouTube. I will just pick some. How do you find balance between culture match and diversity? If that's, yeah.
Yeah. So one way to look at this is, the way I'll answer this is that kind of diversity is something you need to start very early in the organization, right? Very early. It's not something that, let me just hire all my friends and people I know first, and then I'll deal with it later, which happens a lot. But instead, it's really critical that as a founder and or an influencer in the company, that you take a step back and say, we need to make this company great. We need to have diverse opinions. We talked about this. We talked about debate and challenging the status quo and tension.
Unique experiences as well, different perspectives.
To solve problems in a different way. Mm-hmm. It's a good business decision to have diverse people from all different walks of life to come into your organization and just contribute. So I'm saying the difference is that culture fit, if you're saying culture of your friends or of like people you know, I say don't even go there. Just start with a diverse.
Try to resist the urge to get here. People you're most comfortable with, probably, right?
That's right. And usually, sometimes they're not. Many times, I guess, they're not the best people long term, right? They make you feel good at the beginning, but they're not the best people, and it's harder for them. It's harder for people to fire their friends, right?
Yes, so exactly.
But anyway, I diversity starts at the very beginning because it's a best business decision.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Thank you. I think that's a really good question, which I personally like as well. When the big companies like Tesla or Google is buying startups or smaller teams, how does the process of culture merge happens usually?
Yeah, well, the process starts during the conversation process with an acquisition, with M&A, mm-hmm. because usually any company that looks at a company to acquire also looks at if there's a cultural fit of some sort, if they have same principles, like very simple, if one company is flat, there's no hierarchy, and they're hiring a company that everyone has offices and it's hierarchical and everyone has big titles, you need to think about, like, you're bringing on a group of individuals that have grown differently, and a culture fit, and sometimes the organ rejects acquisition. So the process of aligning and the cultural infusion starts just at the interview process when you're evaluating a company. That's when it starts.
So it's like not every organ, not every tissue can be implanted, right?
Exactly. And sometimes you might make a decision not to acquire a company because the culture is so far off that it's going to be a disaster. So but let's say if it's close enough, then yes. And here's another key thing that you might want to consider, and we'll go to the next question, is that sometimes depends on the size of the other company, but sometimes companies really like to blend things together so that elements like the best cultural, the best culture, right? The best element, although maybe the acquiring company has certain anchors, sometimes they're open to say, look, we don't necessarily think we have everything right. So maybe this new company can teach us something. And sometimes companies
being open to actually get something like fresh air.
Right, a fresh perspective. And again, creating synergy and creating connectiveness across companies is a good thing.
Thank you. I think it's, the bigger you get, and Google is acquiring lots of companies. So, but I really like that you said in the beginning, you have to actually look for something that it's at least close or like matching, that you can actually start working with that culture, and it's not totally opposite. Another good question was from YouTube as well. What is more important to look for when you're looking for someone to hire, what is more important? Good communication skills, like soft skills, right? And emotional intelligence, or an employee with excellent technical skills and knowledge? Can you pick which one is more important?
Yeah, so I would say both. So
ideally.
Ideally both. Yeah. So I've hired many technical people that really made people mad around them. Like they were hard to work with, and that was no fun, right? Even though they're technically great. So I guess if I had to pick, if I'm on the spot and had to pick, I would say I would lean towards technical know-how, like really smart, but they have to have some emotional intelligence. They have to have some ability to interact and connect with each other. Because remember, one of the rules that I mentioned is don't settle for anything less than the best candidate. Yes. And if we're settling, then it's probably not going to be the right fit long term. The great candidates are out there. There's a lot of people who are looking for your companies. So I would say maybe pass on both of them and find someone that has a combination of skill sets.
Try to find that unicorn that has everything you want.
That's right, and they are out there.
Yes, they are. Just need to search for them. Okay, so then we have top questions that were pre-selected previously. Can you see them, or you want me to pick some of them? I don't think we have that much time. It's already an hour and 10 minutes. So I think we'll do maybe 10, 15 minutes of questions, and then we will wrap up and maybe ask for some additional questions. Can you see them, or you want me to pick?
If you don't mind, if you can pick.
Yeah, I can pick them. It's fine.
Okay.
I will just pick some that we did not touch at all, so to have a new ones. What are the basic principles that you need to build relationship within the team when you kind of pull different people together?
So, there's some interesting approaches to this, and I've done some assessments. There's assessment tools out there. And I can send a few links later on, just different ones.
You mean assessments to find the best matches?
Yeah. So basically, the assessments are you take your own, you evaluate yourself. Like there's a set of questions that you evaluate yourself, and what are your strengths and weaknesses, and how are your communication styles, and how do you build relationships, and you identify yourself, and then it assigns you like a color, or assigns you a where you are on like this spectrum. Like there's a range of spectrums, whatever it is, and then everybody takes this assessment, and you're able to match and actually look at people. Say, oh, I didn't know that you were a red and I'm a green, right? It seems kind of silly, but actually underneath those colors, there's there's traits and attributes and different personalities that help you realize, you know what, I've been approaching you in the wrong way. I realize that you are much more direct and you just want me to say it like it is and not just start with all the good things.
Interesting. So they give you basically a recipe how to communicate or how to deal with greens.
Exactly. And then
I love that.
And then you're able to interact and say, and for people who don't think about it often, it gives you a framework, a recipe of how to interact with each other, and it really works. And Valerie, I can send you a couple links. People can look at it.
Yeah, that would be great. Yes, I think it's. I've seen some startups about those areas, actually for founders, like how to find the right founders mix. But I think this is really powerful. I agree with you that some people, you might think that they're trying to. Some people, like, they even not saying that this is not working for them. They're trying to say, oh, this is the culture, we kind of have to do this way. But people are different, and you need to find the right, as you said, recipe for that. And may I also ask, like, this testing is done, it can be done once the team is formed, right? So you understand how to communicate with peers already. But when you're forming the team, are you trying to make all reds so they're comfortable with each other? Or are you making a rainbow, like red, green, yellow, blue, so they will complement each other? How would you approach that?
Yeah, that's actually really interesting. You know, what I've used mainly, I've used it for teams that are forming, like they've already formed, and I'm trying to get them to work together better.
Just helping them
and helping them communicate. But you know, I've done testing of candidates as well, or people coming into the team to see, because sometimes in the rainbow you see, you know, we have no one who's yellow in the entire team. And yellow could be warm or approachable, or it could be a different personality. I think
just maybe like adding a different flavor to the team.
Exactly, and so you might use that to look at candidates that come in. So it's totally possible to do that.
Thank you. Yeah, if you can share the links, we're happy to distribute them. I will just translate because people were asking about that. Мы сейчас разговариваем про то, как можно формировать команды, и Арнон сказал, что он расширит линки, где можно будет посмотреть разные tools, которые можно использовать для того, чтобы проанализировать существующую команду и также смотреть, как людям помогать работать вместе. Yes, people were asking, like, everyone's like, can you send out the colors? I love that.
I will.
Thank you. I think there's just lots of questions. I'm trying to choose the most interesting one. Sure. I think the first one, and they're connected. What employee development tools do companies as Tesla and Google use? And the second one, what is the proper or like the best motivation and reward system for people to encourage their development?
Yeah.
Or like to build best results, or like encourage best results.
Yeah. So the really interesting thing about both the companies is that they actually, in early days, they developed their own tools. So they didn't use anything off the market. They kind of developed something that was right for them. And you know, let me give you a couple examples. Like for you know, very simply, as the company grew, and maybe it, you know, as companies grow, Google created at one point an internal movement program. So you could go onto an intranet in the company, and you could put a little bit of a profile of what you're looking for and what you want to learn, how you want to grow, and up would come some jobs that are opened up internally. And any internal job, a current employee has a first chance of interviewing for that internal role before it gets posted externally. So they try to create a sense of, through job experience and working and looking at different opportunities, that you would grow as a professional and be able to rotate through the company. So they built a whole program around that and a whole application internally to do that. At Tesla, it was much more again on the job training. There was some educational process that you'd go through, but really thought that that because the company was growing so fast, you know, the jobs were so expansive, people floated with the jobs, because literally a month later you'd have 50 new employees, 50. So it just like you had to grow. So we spent a lot of time focused on growing manager skill sets. And we did lots of training around how do you supervise people? How do you motivate people? How do you create as much like a reward system? How do you create incentives? So we try to really build the manager population, because that's your best way to scale. Is you
exactly.
have to have
Talking about manager, there was another question which was actually related. People were asking that quite often there's a dilemma, especially for creative people and for engineers as well, that you want them to grow into like team leads or like managers, right? But there's a resistance from their side. They say, I want to just write my code, or I don't want to become just a manager, right? I still want to be creative or productive. So how would you solve this? Like, how do you motivate them? Or you just pick the people who would love to become managers and they feel that this is the area you want to grow?
Yeah, well, actually, the way to do it is you create two career paths.
Mm-hmm.
One career path is manager career path, so that to manage people, and the other career path is to keep being promoted as an individual contributor,
Mm-hmm.
as like a developer, and to be like a principal, or some distinguished engineer. So what's really important for engineering, for example, is you have to motivate both people. Like there's a ton of engineers do not want to manage anybody, don't want to do one performance review. They hate it, and it's fine. But they still want to grow as a professional. So you create a route where they can grow in levels and continue to expand their skill sets, get promotions along the way, but never have to manage anybody. And then you find those few people who become a tech lead and then can grow in the management skill sets. But you have to create two ladders for your engineering population.
To allow them to have choice. Yes.
Have a choice. Exactly. And they can jump back and forth, but they have to have two paths and not feel like, because they didn't choose a manager, feel like there's no path for them. You have to have a path for both people for them to stay.
And I think this is actually a very important part to mention. Yes, you just said about that. People can jump. I've seen in Google people say, I would love to be a contributor, right? Like I'm just writing my code, and then maybe next project I will take some people, I will manage them. And then they get tired again and they're going back. So it's really nice to allow them to experience two parts and not forcing them to be just in this, just like strict to the stream. So I really like that at Google. I've seen people going back and forth.
Yes, exactly. And you have to make that, you have to tell people it's okay to do that. So you can try it for a year or 6 months and you can move around. So you allow people to do that and you say it's okay. It's part of the rules of growing.
And talking about motivation and reward system, would you mind sharing a little bit about best practices from your experiences?
Yeah. So I would separate into two. I would say there's a non-financial one and there's a financial one. So financial one, or I think sometimes we lean towards first, is how do we more options or stock or bonuses. There's different things there, but I say that's not always. Usually it's not the top three. Once people are paid fairly, it's usually not what motivates them. What motivates them a lot more is gaining recognition from their peers. So, what's very easy to do, and I've done this at Teladoc Health, is
about badges.
Yeah, like there's badges. You can gamify it. Exactly. You can it's like peer-to-peer recognition where there's a system where you can actually tell another person they did a great job. And just hearing that from a colleague, sometimes it just motivates them.
It means a lot. Yes.
It means a lot. And so you create these non-financial ways to celebrate success, these non-financial ways to celebrate the small things that people do. And they appreciate that way more than another stock option, because if they feel disconnected to the company, the extra stock or extra bonus is not going to mean much. They're going to leave anyway. It's really about feeling connected to the manager, to the job, to each other, to the mission of the company. That's what motivates people to stay. So you form your motivation around those non-financial elements that create sticky employees, that creates a way for employees to be retained and be happy.
And I think especially it's applicable for the Valley in some way, because there's always someone who will pay you more across the road, right?
Exactly. You have to not feed into that. What you do is
you can't. I think you just can't compete, and I believe you will create wrong incentives for people. So I totally agree with you. It's so important just to have different way of motivating people and make them like your company and want to stay.
Feel connected. Just make them feel connected, and people will stay forever.
It's so much more powerful than financial rewards. I agree with you.
I totally agree.
Thank you. We have actually 10 minutes left, so we'll be slowly wrapping up. You have a last minute to ask questions. It can be either here in in Zoom or YouTube, please do ask questions, because I think Arnon has just such a unique knowledge that we can share right now. Yep, I will just translate. У нас последнее осталось 10 минут. Пожалуйста, спросите какие-то вопросы. Если вы не знаете, как сказать по-английски, напишите по-русски. Я везде могу перевести во всех платформах. У нас осталось последние 10 минут, и это ваш, скажем так, шанс спросить вопросы у Арнона. У него настолько уникальный опыт в абсолютно разных компаниях, поэтому спрашивайте, если что-то еще осталось. So we can wait until something new pop up, and maybe I will pick one more last question from the list. I think it's more like personal. Can you tell us a little bit more about, is there any additional project you're working yourself on right now? Something apart from work that kind of motivates you or keep you, once you're out of the office, what drives you?
Yeah. So, so I found that I'm, and I'm going to tie it back to work, so I apologize, but this is you know, I find that I'm better at work, and I'm better as a thinker at work if I do something different that I learn from. So, you know, and I've done all this research on what they call it pattern recognition, like ability to see a pattern in the environment and solve a problem. And they find, and research says that people who have vast experiences, like different things, and I'll be specific in a second, they, because of all these different experiences and different, that doesn't keep them narrow, keeps them more broad. They're 9 times more effective in making decisions. And research says that. So not that I follow research all the time, but I really enjoy doing things that's not connected to my job. So I'll do things like, I host a father's, who have children, a father's like working session where every month fathers who I don't know, they join in, and we have an open discussion about what it means to be a parent.
Oh, nice.
And I volunteer my time in schools. I sit on boards of elementary schools and help kids and help curriculum and help think about building better educational systems locally. I volunteer my time with different causes, and I do it because I love it, but also because it helps me like rethink, like, how do you create curriculum? Like, how do you create
you challenge yourself to solve different problems.
Yes, in a different way. And you have to put yourself in that situation. You have to it's like the best simulation. You just have to do it. And so I spend my time putting myself in situations that I'm uncomfortable, but it makes me better. And then when I come back to work, I say, you know what? When I was on board of that school, we had a similar problem, and I can apply it to a problem. Or if I'm talking to a father who having a hard time being a parent, I can talk to an employee about their own difficulty, maybe working with
you can understand, you can see from different perspective. Yep. I think it's extremely important. It's very valuable to just go out there and learn. I like this. There's another strategy about friendship. We try to pick people from very different backgrounds, like a ballerina, financial baker, I don't know, painter. And because quite often we live with our friends and bubbles, and maybe Silicon Valley can be bubble in itself, right? And it's so important to have not just different perspective, but listening to other people, right? Listen to their problems. Like, as you said, father with the child, and then you can understand more your employees and your work. It's so applicable and so important to have this knowledge and curiosity to go out and to learn from them.
Yes.
Okay, last personal question, and then we're going to, I think, finish for today. What is your exceptional ability?
That's a great question. I think my exceptional ability is, I always know that there is a way to win, and there's a way to solve a problem. Like I don't get too, I feel very, the harder the problem is, the more intense, the more crazy it is, the calmer I get, and the more clear thinking that I get. So when I'm put into a crisis situation, I feel that, you know, it could be anything, small, big. I think through to the end, and I help find a solution that will help the company, the problem, the family move forward. So I think I stay calm in the most horrendous situations that I can uncover. I think that's my superpower, is calmness.
That's a good one. So you would say you enjoy the pressure of the challenge?
I enjoy the pressure quite a bit.
Okay, it's a fantastic skill to have for any jobs, but especially, I mean, the higher you get, the more pressure you have on your shoulders. Thank you very much, Arnon. It was, I think, fantastic talk. I would keep talking to you for another hour or so, but we need to be mindful of time. Thank you very much again for joining today, for sharing your knowledge. As I said, you have unique experiences, and if you would love to share those links, we can share them later with people.
Well,
can I just ask if we have Arsen here in the call? Because I think he usually joins at the end. Arsen? Maybe we don't have him because usually he likes to wrap up a little bit. So thank you everyone who joined, and please do reach out later if you have any more questions or there's anything you would love to translate. Some people were asking about if we will have a translation or if we will have some transcription for that. Yes, we will try to create so people who didn't speak English will understand more. And I can add from myself, please learn English. It will help you a lot in your life. So thank you, Arnon, very much. And yeah, thank you for joining for today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Take care, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Я, наверное, завершу еще на русском. Arnon, I will just wrap up in Russian a little bit. Спасибо всем большое, что присоединились. Арнон был уникальный спикер, мы очень благодарны ему за сегодня. И я хотела сказать, что для тех, кто не смог понять сегодняшний ток или остались какие-то вопросы, мы сделаем перевод и постараемся присоединиться субтитры, чтобы люди могли понять, потому что действительно знания, которые мы сегодня получили, они очень уникальные. Всем большое спасибо. Арсена сегодня, к сожалению, не было, но я думаю, что он придет на следующей нашей встрече. И, пожалуйста, до следующих встреч. Thank you very much, Arnon. Thank you. I will disconnect now. Thank you. Bye.